Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining. We'll get started in just a couple minutes here. All right. Welcome, everyone. Glad you could join us for our webinar, Streamlining Regulated Customer Communications, a deep dive into MHC automation. My name is Sarah. I'm part of the marketing team here at MHC, and I'd love to introduce our speakers today. I'm happy to welcome two of our speakers, Mia and Liz. They are experts in CCM and CX from the consulting company Chameleon Collective, and I'll hand it off to them.
Thank you so much, Sarah. We're really happy to be here. Today, we'll be discussing critical customer communications, how they are challenging, what the keys are to streamlining these communications, how to select the right partner, and then, of course, MHC will take you through how they can help you with streamlined communications through the product Engage CX. So we'll be discussing critical customer communications and how they are challenging. I mean, you're dealing with regulated communications, you're dealing with silos, you're dealing with different departments, and these all add to the fact that getting these communications out that are so regulated and need to be out on time is extremely challenging. And so we've seen this time and time again. But before we even kick off, what I'd like to do is actually just take you through what we're talking about when we talk about customer communication management. It really is the software and services that you can use to create, manage, and deliver documents and communications across various channels. They're usually transactional in nature. They are highly regulated. They've traditionally been print, but we've seen a massive change in that over the last few years, where many of these regulated communications are going out digitally. But most of all, they disconnected from marketing efforts. And what that means is it usually lands up being a very fractured experience. And a lot of the software being used is not the same. So automation is just not there. And when these communications fail, it impacts the business significantly. A poll conducted by the Harris poll actually found that a third of Medicaid members said they were not contacted by their health plan to renew coverage. I mean, that's a huge amount to not actually receive any communication whatsoever to renew that coverage and continue with the coverage. We saw another example with a loan servicer in Missouri, Mahela. They sent out the bills for student loans out late, and they were hit with a $7.2 million fine. That is huge. Like, if these communications aren't going out, there's a massive impact to the business. Like, having the right solutions in place is crucial.
Mia, what I think is really impactful about these two stats is these were news headlines. So, even though you may not be the size of a Mohalla or of Medicaid, the point being is this really is impactful to your business in a very negative way. And it's truly important that you pay attention to it.
And regulations around these communications honestly impact value. A recent survey by PricewaterhouseCoopers found that CEOs say that regulations is the biggest impediment to adding value. So when you're adding regulations, it really does impact what you can do with those communications, when you can send them out, and they have to be sent out at specific time periods, especially when you're talking about, a bill or a statement. They have to go out, they're contractually bound to be sent out. So when you're dealing with regulations, you can't do everything you'd love to do that is done with marketing, which is why you find those silos. They are dealt with in silos. But cloud services and automation will add value. Gartner found that investment in cloud solutions, they expect to exceed $1 trillion by 2027. That's a huge number. And companies will start harnessing the power of automation, especially with cloud solutions, to drive efficiency, innovation, and competitiveness. So we're going to see a lot more automation. Once you get automation, you get a lot more productivity. Once that all starts happening, you'll see value really start being driven through these communications. And I mentioned productivity. Like, we cannot forget the impact on internal teams. Harvard Business Review did a study, and they found that 90% of workers say automation solutions increases their productivity. 90% also say trusted automation solutions get more done with less errors. I mean, I guess that's an obvious statement to make, but it is really hard to get right, to get these automated solutions and to get these documents out on time.
And there are a lot of reasons for that. Mia and I talk about these reasons all the time because many of you who are here today face these challenges. And we can see Mia mentioned, regulatory sort of requirements. CEOs view that as one of their biggest challenges, and that's the reality, right? Navigating the landscape, both at a federal and a state level, can sometimes be very challenging, especially if you're a company who operates in multiple states, right? So you have sort of different rules across state lines. How do you manage the complexities of making sure you hit all of those regulatory requirements when it comes to those customer communications, those documents that you're sending out? The second is changing, customer expectations. And we haven't talked about this yet, but this is something that Mia and I are very passionate about, and we actually talk about it on a weekly basis, where we look at how the way consumers thought 10 years ago versus 5 years ago pre-pandemic to today has drastically changed, right? And consumers are experiencing things with companies outside of the regulated environment, such as in retail, right? Where they expect sort of instant information, best experiences, right? They want their documents to be super clear. They want communications in their channels of choice. So all of those things create a very, challenging space for companies like you to deliver streamlined communications that also meet the consumer's needs. The third is limited resources. And so I'm sure we don't have to talk about this, for very long with you all, because I'm sure you're feeling the constraints over the past few years, right? With heavy inflation that's led to sort of budget cuts. So limited financial resources. We've seen sort of the employee turnover since post-pandemic as well. As a result of that, we may have resourcing constraints from a staffing perspective, right? So all of these resources and these limitations make it a challenge, again, to Mia's point, to sort of connect the dots between marketing communications and those that are regulated communications. How do we create, and compose and deliver those communications in a very fast, easy, automated way, and do so in such a way that it still delights customers? And the last thing is integration with other systems. We know that some of you who are here with us today, you might have grown over time through acquisition. And those acquisitions have brought legacy systems, or you've sort of outgrown your sort of small market. You're now in sort of that middle market, and all of your homegrown systems, right, don't all talk to each other per se. What do you do in those instances? What if you're looking to upgrade your sort of CRM, your single source of truth? How do you ensure that how you're composing your customer communications is linked into that? There's so many constraints. There's so many sort of critical needs from that perspective. So these 4 things, and this isn't all, but these are the sort of the top 4 challenges, right, Mia, we see out there when we're talking to companies. These 4 challenges make it even harder to sort of streamline your customer communications. Now, when we go down even a level, right? So not just looking at your communications as a whole, but now when we get to the fact that you have to create, compose these documents at a large scale, right? And you deliver those, now additional challenges present themselves, right? So first, it's very time consuming, especially when it comes to those regulatory changes that are needed. It's time sensitive and stressful, as we saw with the examples of Medicaid and Mohela. You may not have, the impacts may not be as monetarily as great for you, but they are still very great for you. You have to make sure that you get things out on time, and they cannot go out with mistakes, right? There's process visibility blind spots. We know that sort of in traditional workflows, we see sort of one team hands off to the next team when they're creating documents, and there isn't visibility necessarily across that entire workflow. That can create challenges in itself. And the last and final one is something that Mia and I really like to call failure demand. When communications go out that aren't clear, they aren't concise, there's a mistake on them, these miscommunications, right, or these fractures in those communications end up creating a demand on your very limited resources. So you start to get more inbound calls coming from your customers. And that's not an area where you want to increase expense, right? You want to see those expenses go down. So then when we go down a level, right, so we've gone from the organization to the document creation process. Now when we go down into sort of your actual users, right, your employees, those of you who are working in these customer communications day in and day out, what are some of the challenges that you face? Well, one is just the sheer volume, right? So whether we're talking about 1,000 bills or statements or 1,000 labels or 1,000,000 bills or statements, right? Those are large volumes where we need to ensure, right, efficiency and efficacy. The second is exception handling, right? Again, we sort of talked about workflows and sort of the previous way of doing things without automation. How do you handle those exceptions today? Are they very manual in nature, right? Do they require a lot of time? And does that end up leading to more expense on your side? And then the lack of visibility once again throughout that workflow. So all of this sort of leads us to the fact that there's this very specific key to streamlining your customer communications, and it's sort of twofold, and we'll go into those items now. And that's really automation, right? And so Mia started with setting the scene of what all the analysts are saying, what all of the research is coming back is that automation, right, is the key to process efficiency, right, to really streamlining. And the reality of that is there, right? We've seen many examples of where we've had conversations with customers prior to using a tool that's going to help them automate, and then afterwards. And in every single example, we see that automation has allowed them to increase their document throughput. And that in turn, they can go back to an exact business case and show that it's reduced their time, right? And overall has reduced their total cost of ownership. So there really is a driving business need to look at how to automate and streamline your customer communications.
Before you move on, I was speaking to an implant recently, and they decided to automate they hadn't realized that they could have solutions to automate their document creation at pace, at scale. And when they started putting these solutions in place, they were shocked at how much more time they had. They had their processes in place before, they thought it worked, but never realized the sheer amount of time and resources it was taking prior to actually putting automated solutions in place.
Yeah, and we're talking about getting things down to fractions of a second, right? So imagine if you today are struggling with your throughput, just think about how positively you can impact your organization by reducing that significantly. And that leads us to even, bigger sort of business outcomes, right? Because when we think about your ability to effectively communicate with your customers, to deliver on what the regulators are requiring you to do, then that gives you the assurance that you can gain new customers, right? You can sustainably grow your business without worrying about your process around your customer communications breaking at any point. Mia and I just recently attended an industry conference that was specific to customer communications management. And many of the sessions talked about lagging technical debt and legacy systems and homegrown systems that were at the verge of breaking. And really what the cost associated with that was, the cost is not being able to grow, right? Not being able to realize all of your efforts. So instead, you want to look for solutions that are going to help you flex and scale, right, as you grow. Nothing that is too rigid, right? That isn't going to allow you to sort of show that step growth. And you don't ever want to be in a position where you're worrying about a process failing, because that's what happened in that Mohela example. Their CCM system, their engine that created those documents and that triggered them off to those student loan borrowers, that system failed. And so you don't ever want to be in a position where that's going to happen. So when we think about, as you look for tools, for solutions, for services around the streamlining of your communications, we want you to really think about what it's going to do for your employees, for you yourself. How is this going to empower you to deliver streamlined communications? And really, it's all about self-serving, right? So allowing you to self-serve, to take those, that burden off of IT that we talked about, those limited resources. We want to remove that entirely and be able to empower you with the resources that you need to make the changes. We know that, in the regulated environment, you could get a change that needs to happen in a very swift process. But if you have many templates to manage, that can become very burdensome. Instead, you want to look for solutions that are going to allow you to do that in a very swift way, efficient way, where you're creating process efficiencies that were not possible before in either your homegrown system or your legacy system. All of this is going to mean that you're now putting the power inside of your team, right, where you sit today, and not having to rely on others. And that, I'm sure, is music to your ears. Now, let's take a moment just to talk a little bit about sort of selecting the right partner, right? Because if you think about what we've discussed, automation is critical, right? It's critical to your success. Without, automating the composition and the delivery of your customer communications, you put yourself at risk, right? For some consequences. So how do you select the right partner? Well, we believe, especially within the sort of mid-market arena that most of you are in, you want to look for a partner who truly has expertise in automation. So, there are many sort of composition companies out there, but Mia and I have seen really one emerge in the mid-sized market who has always been steeped in a rich history of automation. The second is just that, understanding the needs of the mid-market, right? Understanding the fact that, the challenges that you're going through today are not the same challenges that you had 10 years ago, maybe as a smaller company, and they're not the challenges that, a large enterprise would necessarily have. And when we say mid-market, you could be a line of business within a large enterprise, but you own sort of your own product line and your own P&L. You very much face a lot of these same challenges that we've discussed today. So you want a provider who understands that, right? Who's not trying to sell you something that an enterprise would need, but also understands your very unique needs. And then the final thing is you want someone who is truly understanding of this highly regulated market, right? And how to manage these en masse communications. It's not the same thing as getting Salesforce, guys, and plugging in Salesforce and saying, that's I'm going to use for all my customer communications. That's just not how the regulated market works, right? You need a true partner, a true set of solutions that you can pick and choose from what's best to fit your needs, that's going to allow you to create, right? Use the data that you have to create, compose, and deliver those customer communications. And so with that, Mia and I thought today that we would like to introduce you to a partner that we have found is ripe for this exact thing. So we'd like to introduce to you today, Olga. Hi, Olga.
Hi, everybody, and thank you so much, Liz and Mia, for being with us today. It's always great to hear from you and learn the insights that you can provide. I know you have years and years of experience in customer communications. So thanks for having me. I'm your guest, but I'll be happy to share with our audience today just some practical examples of what positive changes can happen in organizations that are in regulated industries with the right technology and the right approach. And I represent MHC. I am the CCM lead at our company, and my job is really to connect with our customers and our potential customers and to inspire a conversation, to learn about what your challenges are and whether a solution like our Engage CX product could be a fit. So hopefully my presentation will give you a flavor of what the solution can do. And if you have questions, then please reach out to us and we can discuss whether there is something we can do for you as well. Just to give you an idea of what Engage CX is, we automate customer communications, and we do that in a compliant and secure way. And some of the things that really differentiate MHC Engage CX from similar customer communications platforms is our focus on the ease of use so that we can unlock the potential of the organization to go from relying on IT to empowering business users. So that really means that no matter how large or small you are, no matter how big your IT team is, we can actually help give the functionality in the hands of the business users when they need it to make quick changes, to update communications, see reporting, and so on and so forth. And I will highlight those aspects in my customer use cases I'm going to share with you. We also provide insight into communications delivery and interactions, and we can be integrated with any data source and any output channel or method. That is another thing that is critical. It is critical in any industry, but especially in the regulated world. You may have preferences on where your data has to be stored for a given reason. You may have preferences on which providers you use to deliver emails or SMS or print communications. And we really want to make sure that we provide that flexibility. So now, just real quick, our product suite is very powerful. There's a lot of functionality, and our customers choose to use certain components. You don't have to use our top tier package. You can start with something that we call Engage CX Create. And this allows to create and deliver communications at scale. And this is really the basic capability of any CCM solution. And we want to give that tool to those teams that just need to compose, create communications at scale. And that works perfectly fine within your existing infrastructure. Our Engage CX Converse package is probably where the majority of our customers actually live. And it's the creation and delivery of large-scale, on-demand or batch communications in a variety of output formats, pretty much anything you need. And we have a number of built-in functionality that enables those conversations through your regulated communications, such as e-signing processes or barcodes, and so on. And finally, our Engage CX Experience package will give you additional tools if you want to go above and beyond delivering documents and communications. If you would like to engage your customers, understand their journey with your organization and the touch points with those communications, and receive advanced analytics, this is the package for you. As I mentioned, the platform is quite flexible. So the examples I'm going to go into now, I'm not sharing which package they use because it's really not as relevant as what they actually are able to do with the help of our solution. So let's start. I picked several success stories, and some of them we have the permission, our client, to name them. Some of them we don't, but that is okay. I will give you the context of who the organization is. All of these organizations are going to be in regulated industries, and this first example is a very large Canadian bank, one of the top, and we solve very practical and complex problem for them. We create credit card account statements, and we also enable the interactive use dashboards for the customers of this bank. You may have seen these visualizations on statements of where your money is going. So this is something that we can create in a very personalized way for every single recipient of that statement, just belonging to them. And the challenges of this customer was that they needed additional flexibility. I mentioned that this is one of the key strong points of our solution, enabling business users, being flexible, letting business users solve their problems. So one of the highlights of this use case is that marketing team can actually update marketing messaging on statements so that the statement becomes a true communication and engagement vehicle. So in addition to solving the regulatory challenge of delivering these in the first place, we actually enable additional business benefits for customers. My second example is also a financial services sector, but this is a much smaller organization. It's a company that needed to better collect data from external third parties. Documents don't have to be generated from data that resides already in the internal infrastructure. So in this example, external brokers had to complete online forms to provide certain data points that were part of the composed end user documents. The company also used Salesforce as their CRM, so they needed an integration. So what this represents is the ability of Engage CX to integrate within your existing infrastructure any solution, in this example, Salesforce, and leverage multiple data sources to create one document or 60 documents for that matter. This saved this particular customer a lot of time because they didn't have to collect data manually, they didn't have to vet it, they didn't have to combine multiple templates into one. Okay, thank you. Let's move on to the next one. I know we're almost at time, so let me go through this quickly. And thank you for staying over. You will get the recording even if you have to leave, so don't worry about it. This one is a healthcare customer. Healthcare, highly regulated, so security, compliance, privacy was critical here. And this is what we ensure for every single one of our customers. So healthcare customers can rest assured that they will be protected. We did automate multiple document types for this very large US pharmacy chain. The chain has retail locations as well as clinics, and they also manage a Medicare Part D prescription plan. So we automated documents that are associated with these practices. We have heard that the client's satisfaction with services has increased after our solution was implemented. We worked with multi-language requirements. Another example of reduction of IT workload in this case. And overall, this customer has been with us for several years now, and they're probably going to implement additional solutions with us. And finally, I have an example of two customers that achieved a similar outcome with MHC Engage CX. And the regulated documents in question here are taxes, employee documents, including taxes, as well as individual and business taxes of an entire European country. Again, I don't have a permission to name them, but it's an entire fairly sizable country in Europe that we deliver tax documents for. What was the impact of this project is that finally, the implementation was actually delivered on time. The previous experience with other CCM vendors that these customers reported was that it took a very long time to implement, and the implementations have failed, so they switched to MHC. We were also competitively priced, and the platform capabilities were outstanding. So overall, we were able to fulfill the regulatory requirement, and provide great ROI to these customers while ensuring full security of the personally identifiable information. So hopefully these examples give you a flavor for what we can do and inspire you to look into what you can automate within your organization. I will leave this slide with you. You will receive the deck and the recording as well. This is just about MHC, and I think these numbers, if you were to take anything away, is that our customers trust us. Many of them stay with us for more than 15 years and use multiple solutions from MHC to automate multiple processes. We're consistently named a leader based on customer feedback. We're recognized by analysts. And while we serve the mid-market very well, we also have some very large customers with very, very high volumes that we're proud of. So thank you very much for being with me today. Please stay tuned. You will receive the recording of the session in your inbox. Please share with your team. Also, if you'd like to learn more about MHC, you can point your mobile phone at the screen and you will be directed to our website using this QR code, or you can visit mhcautomation.com. Thank you again, and thank you, Mia and Liz, for being with us.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.